Hi, I'm Nicole and this is Nick's Picks. I've been posting a video once a month this year just talking about the books that I picked out to read that month. Today we're going to talk about the 5 books that I read in August. I'm a little late posting the video and doing the video because this was back to school week and back to work week for me because I do work in a school, so crazy week. But I definitely didn't want to lose track of this and I want to do my August video. So last month, my video actually cut off abruptly because I ran out of space on my phone because I delete nothing. So hopefully that won't happen this time around. But I was talking about a series that I was reading, a 5-book series, and I actually had to stop because I got so engrossed by this other book. So I was looking up books on Amazon, and I read a sample of this book and could not stop reading it. So I finished what I was reading and then immediately had to stop and go to this book. And that is The Fake Date Agreement by Nicole. I'm showing you on my iPad because it's color and it's a pretty cover, as opposed to the Kindle, which doesn't have color. So I did read this on Kindle Unlimited. I'm not even sure that there is a hard copy of the book. And let me tell you, I loved it. This is probably a 5-star read for me. So I just want to talk first about what it is, because this is my first experience with a Why Choose. And going into this, I've never read reverse harem or Why Choose. And I did have some preconceived notions. So I just want to briefly talk about that. So basically, just a couple of things. I didn't have much interest in doing the reverse harem or the Why Choose personally because I don't, that's doesn't necessarily appeal to me specifically. And second of all, because I felt like just in general, I feel like it's kind of like a double standard. I feel whenever you see a situation, real life, fake, whatever, where there's one guy and multiple girls, most often it's portrayed as a little sleazy, but then all of a sudden now all these Why Choosers are becoming so popular and reverse harem, and it's oh great, women empowerment type thing. So I don't know, I just had that little bit of double standard there that I didn't love. I also just feel in general, just thinking about the relationship, I didn't think it was quite fair. When you think about thruples or something of that nature, I feel like it's a little different because you've got 3 people or, however many people kind of all giving and getting the same out of the relationship. Whereas with these reverse harems and Why Choose, we're dealing with one person being with multiple people. So I feel like that one person gets a consistent, dating and spice and all of that kind of stuff. Whereas the other people have to wait their turn and share. So I'm and again, no judgments here. Different things appeal to different people. And if that's something that anybody's into, that's absolutely fine. But personally, in terms of a romance that I want to read, I was never quite on board with it or cared about it one way or the other. So to me, and I don't have much experience with it, obviously, so I don't know if all of the books will read the same as this when I talk about certain things, but this is what I'm going by. So from what I'm made to understand, reverse harem is when it's one female with multiple males, whereas Why Choose is one female with multiple partners. That could be male or female. So this is a Why Choose, but in this Why Choose, it does happen to be 1 female and 3 males. So, and it's also a hockey romance, which I do love. So these 3 guys are hockey players, not professional, it's college level hockey players. And the premise is that the girl, Toby, is dating someone for 6 years and she's not into sports at all. He's big into hockey. She tries to surprise him at one of the games and he's on the kiss cam with another girl. He's been cheating on her, whatever. And she kind of embarrasses herself on the kiss cam and it's a whole thing. And then at the end of the night, 3 of the hockey players that are good friends, Caleb, Reed, and Javier, find her in the locker room and comfort her, and they set up this whole thing, this fake date agreement, that they're going to date her to try to make the ex jealous and regret what he did. And what they're getting out of it is that they really have to focus on hockey and stuff because of this upcoming big championship or whatever it is. And they don't want the distraction of all the girls that are always trying to get with them and stuff. So that's the premise. Sounds good. Started to read it, was totally into it. I was also a little worried about the plot of a Why Choose because I just felt like that's part of the, excitement of a romance when there is more than one person and stuff like that. You can't wait to see who they choose, so I'm if we're not choosing anyone here, what's the point? So anyway, I was wrong. I was very wrong about all of it. And I could not love this anymore. I could not be, more into it in terms of like certain things that I didn't think I would be into, like having to share and all that kind of stuff. Like, it was definitely appealing. It was definitely fun to read it. Again, I'm reading this like from the woman's point of view, I guess, meaning, like for me, like relating to her. So I feel like the fairness I'm still on the fence about, because it still seems a little bit unfair if this were to really happen in real life. I feel like she does have like a consistent, gets to date people and gets to be with people whenever she wants, whereas they had to like wait their turn, so to speak. And again, because this is fantasy, they were fine with it. Like, these guys are friends and nobody really got jealous and there was none of that going on. I don't know if that's really how it would play out, and if there really is no like third wheel, fourth wheel situation in this kind of scenario. If it was real, I don't know. I also don't want to do any spoilers, but I feel like I do kind of want to say, and again, this is the first type of book like this that I've read, so I don't know if that's always the case, but I found myself wondering throughout the book. In the beginning, she's kind of with them separately, meaning like, I'm on a date with this person, or I'm sleeping with this person, or whatever. And I just kept finding myself wondering, is there going to come a point where they are kind of like all together in one relationship, meaning even dates, or for the spice and the smut and all of that. And we do kind of eventually get to that point, although I do get the impression that even, at that point, she still is involved in all of it. Like, I don't think any of the guys are together without her, kind of thing, or anything like that, sexually and all of that. So I still feel like she's got the better deal here when it comes to all of that. But again, this is a fantasy, this is fiction, this is fun, and this was amazing. I mean, just think about the fact that in real life, when you're picking a partner or whatever, like, nobody's perfect. Like, you can't have someone that's, the most romantic and also funny and also super attractive and also protective and doesn't get jealous and just like the perfect guy, a lot of money, all this stuff. You have to kind of, everybody has certain positives and certain negatives, and you have to pick what's important to you and what you can do without. And she really doesn't, because when you add all these guys up together, she's getting everything. One of them's loaded, so she doesn't have to worry about money. And just one of them's funnier, one of them is a bit more protective, one of them, so like whatever you're lacking in one of the other guys most likely has. So you pretty much like want for nothing because you have so many options. You also don't get bored. Like, you think about when you're in a relationship for a long time and things get a little boring. Like, I feel like if you're with 3 people, like, yeah, I mean, I don't want to be with him tonight, I'll be with him tonight instead. Like, it's just still a little like strange thinking about this happening in real life, but for a fantasy, it was a lot of fun, and it really worked. I will also say the plot that I was worried about, like, oh, well, what's the point if we're not going to see who she's picking and stuff? It really was the same as a relationship between 2 people. Like, it was just kind of like times 3, if that makes sense. So in other words, we still dealt with the ex. We still dealt with them getting into the relationship with her. We still dealt fake at first and then catching feelings. And then like maybe they hit an obstacle and then they have to overcome that, and the happily ever after and all of that stuff. We went through that same plot line, but just there were 3 people that she was doing that with instead of 1. So it still kind of worked in that sense. Like, I was wrong about that. I was still anxious to see her, instead of saying be with him, be with them. I was anxious to see her be with them, find out that they are catching real feelings, go through the obstacles with them and then get back together with them. Like, I feel like it was still the same storyline and looking forward to the same things and enjoying the same things, just times 3. The smut, amazing. And I will say, the author, Nicole, did a great job with the point of views, because it's told from all of their point of views. Like, this chapter might be Toby, this chapter might be one of the guys, one of the other guys, and I was never like, they're distinct characters. I fell in love with 3 male main characters. Like, you really do get the experience of 3 guys here. And when they're talking, when Caleb's talking, it sounds different than when Reed is talking, sounds different than when Javier is talking. So she did a great job of all of their point of views. If I had to give like one negative, there is a bit of like Toby's, got self-esteem issues, and Maybe she doesn't have the perfect body and she's a little self-conscious about it. She, if not for this fake agreement, she doesn't think these guys would ever really want to be with her. And that's typical in a lot of these books and in real life. Like, we all deal with self-confidence issues and whatever. I will say hers to me got a little annoying at some points. Like at some point I was eventually kind of like, okay, they like you, like accept it, let's go now. You know what I mean? Like, I just felt like she really harped on that a lot, and it got a little annoying when it became a little bit too much for me. But other than that, again, it was just great. The storyline with the ex, the storyline with each of the guys, because they've all got like something different going on. It was entertaining. It was a pretty long book, and yet I couldn't, I wanted to pick it up. I was very anxious to read it. It was fun. Again, the spice was really, really, really good. Everything was good. And I will definitely be reading more Why Choose romances. So I feel like if anybody out there have felt the same way and maybe like thought it might not appeal, give it a shot. That's not the first time I've said that this year. Again, it wasn't anything I was against or found gross or it gave me an ick or anything like that. And again, I'm never one to judge what other people like, so it just to me was, and I didn't care about it one way or the other. But now that I read it, it was great, and there are so many, positives to this fantasy that you don't maybe realize going in, and it was probably a 5-star read for me. So I would definitely recommend that book. And then before I got back into my series, just because I was so excited to read this book, I picked up My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. Let me tell you, August was an amazing reading month. I loved everything I read this month. So we're going to start with you looking at the cover, because this is insane. I could not love this cover anymore. The back, this screams just like, I'm a horror movie buff. And this just screams like 80s horror movie. This just, I just can't, I wanted to hold this book so bad. So I will say the pacing of this book was not super fast. However, I kept wanting to pick it up because I just physically wanted to pick it up. Like, this I knew was going to be 5 stars from the cover alone, because I just could not. And then I was so happily surprised by the book. So the premise here is their names were, Abby and Gretchen. They're best friends. One of them gets possessed, and that's pretty much it. So it's my best friend's exorcism. And Abby has to try to help, kind of save Gretchen. So that's the story. And not much, it's like the perfect, it's like a horror movie in a book. It's so perfect. Nothing like totally like too over the top gross or whatever. I mean, just perfect. Like what you would expect happens. And it was great. The ending was good. The very ending, maybe I didn't love. Like, I feel like, I wish, I don't know, maybe a little something different happened. But overall, it was great. The characters were so well developed. Now, let me tell you, it's not unusual to have a male author write about, write from a female point of view, or a female author write from a male point of view. But I could not get over how well done it was in this case. So this is like a coming of age book, really. And it's 2 teenage girls. And it was written, the details that he included, and this was like the perfect coming of age of 2 teenage girls, is the bottom line, and written by a guy. So I was just so impressed by that. Again, this is like Stephen King to me, where I was just kind of like loving the writing. It was humorous. It was just the sentences were beautifully constructed. I can't even explain, like, it just gave you the feels, is what I'm going to say. So like, the story aside, this just gave you the feels. It was very 80s. It was just very horror movie. And it was, again, just like that coming of age. You felt like you were growing up with them. You felt like it was your childhood. Like, he was so good about capturing everything. Like, I can't get over what a good job he did. We'll definitely be reading more by him. I've never read any other book by him. I'm actually reading one right now, and I can't wait to show you next month, because it is, again, so cool. The more he's got the marketing on lock. So that's all I'll say about that. But it's really cool, and I can't wait to show you that one next month. But amazing. I would totally recommend this book. It's not super fast paced, but again, just the journey is so fun. Like I always say about Stephen King, it takes a long time to get through his books. A lot of exposition in his books, a lot of just kind of going on and setting a scene. Wasn't quite to that extent with this, but similarly, like where it was just kind of more about the journey than actually like, all of that stuff. But so much symbolism, the characters were so good, and again, just like the perfect coming of age story, and just so wonderful to look at this book every day when I was carrying around and when I was picking it up to read. It's just really, it was such a good book, and any horror fans really should take a look at this book and at him. I probably would give this like 4.5 stars. So then I went back to my series. So I talked about this last month. Again, I don't have the hard copy, so I only did it on the Kindle. And all 5 books are included. So this is the Mindfuck series by St. Abby or Stabby. She has a couple of names that she goes by. She actually died, this author. But when she was alive, she wrote under a couple of pen names, and these kind of books was her Stabby pen name. You might have also seen this. A lot of people hold this. So these books, the hard copy comes as one really big book that has all 5 books in it because the 5 books are very short. On the Kindle, they download as 5 separate books. So last month I read The Risk and Sidetracked and Scarlet Angel. And this month I read the other 2. I read All the Lies and Paint It All Red. Okay, so that kind of completes the Mindfuck series. So this is how I feel about that. As I said last month, a lot of triggers, a lot of trigger warnings for this book. And I've said this a million times in my videos, I can handle most things, not much phases me, but there are a couple of things that really don't sit well with me. However, I've kind of pushed the boundaries this year, and I've read a couple of things out of my comfort zone. And one of the things I don't like reading about at all usually is rape. And I don't think I'd be able to watch this for sure. Like if they made a TV series or movie out of this, I don't know that I could stomach it. But I did get through the book. And I will say, and I said I couldn't give a full opinion on whether or how bad it actually was because they kind of flash back to the trauma. So you're getting, as the books go on, you're getting more and more about what happened. And I didn't want to make a complete opinion until we got all of that. So having read the whole thing now, knowing what happened, knowing all the stuff, it's rough. It definitely is rough. If you are triggered by that stuff, any type of like sexual abuse or abuse in general, or just, if, you don't have a strong stomach, I would probably not read it. However, someone like me who usually does hesitate at that stuff and gave it a try, it hooks you right away. So you're right in on the story. The premise was so cool to me. It's basically the serial killer dating the FBI agent, and the serial killer is the girl. So Lana is the killer and Logan is the agent. And it was really good. It was really good. I did, I think, mention this last month, my little whatever, if I had to say about that thing, that I was so excited to read that. Right off the bat, you know that she's got something that happened to her in the past. She's got trauma she's dealing with, and this is like revenge. All of the people she's killing, she's like checking off a list. These are the people that hurt her. So I didn't love that because I feel like eventually you start to think, well, when this all comes out and whatever, maybe he'd be on board, the FBI agent, because they're together and maybe he can understand where she's coming from. I'm not saying whether or not that happens or whatever, but you kind of like, there's almost like a way out right away. I really liked the idea of like a straight up serial killer killing for no reason. And those kind of people usually do not have like emotional relationships and connections, real ones anyway. So I liked the idea of maybe that kind of a person falling in love with the agent, and then like, how do we rectify this? So it wasn't that. So that was like a little negative for me in the beginning when I realized it wasn't going to be that. But that aside, my only other big negative was that I said, and it kind of got better as the books went on, I will say, It felt very amateur, the writing, but to a fault, like to the point where it was distracting to me. I felt like the dialogue was very verbose, saying way more than you would normally say. It didn't sound natural, describing things in weird ways. Like I just felt like it was very unnatural, especially in the beginning. Again, once you're in the story, once you're with the characters, you just kind of, I guess, get used to it, and maybe it does get a little better as the books go on. But that was my other big negative. For those reasons, for that reason alone, I would not give this 5 stars. However, I would probably give it like at least 4 stars because they really kept me hooked. I read every book. I really wanted to see what was going to happen. It was very fast paced, like it didn't drag on. Other things happened besides that main storyline that they were dealing with. Other characters got involved, all of that kind of stuff. So that was fun. When it comes to the trauma and the reveal of like what happened, it is very, very graphic. It is very hard to think about, imagine, you know. I think it is so over the top that might almost be why you could get past it, because it just can't get any worse than this, and it just is, and you know this, and it's just going to be. So having said that, I liked the ending. I liked how everything resolved. And again, I was hooked from start to finish. The only reason I stopped is because I got sidetracked by that other book, reading the sample. But other than that, I was fully into it. It was great. I would definitely recommend it. However, I will say it was tough. The subject matter was tough. So if you don't think you could handle something like that, definitely steer clear. But everybody that I've seen on Book Talk, BookTube, that has read this book can't recommend it enough, and I see why, and I do see the appeal. It was definitely great. The writing wasn't great, and kind of takes you out of the story sometimes. Like I felt like, especially in the beginning, it was that bad, that unnatural. But that aside, it was great, and also very unrealistic. But again, suspension of disbelief definitely for this one. You know, she's able, you know, obviously thinking about a woman killing all these men, like she's like this killing machine. She's able to do all of this, and she's got a friend that conveniently knows, you know, whatever they need to know to figure out not getting caught and all this kind of stuff. So, you know, it's very unrealistic in that sense, but again, wonderful like pace, suspense and satisfaction at the end. And it just kind of like, there was maybe one thing that I wish would have happened a little differently at the end, but other than that, I loved it. I would definitely recommend that if you're okay reading that kind of material. And then the last book that I read that I specifically saved for the summer and got it in just in time, just for the summer, by Abby Jimenez. This is, believe it or not, my first Abby Jimenez book. Will definitely not be my last. This is probably one of the best books I've ever read. I can't believe how much I love this book. This wasn't just like a fluff, you know, whatever, rom-com-y romance. It was part that, but there was so much else going on. These characters were so great. This, you know, the premise is kind of cute. We have Justin and Emma, and both of them find that when they date someone, and, you know, more than just one date, like a couple of dates with someone, and they break up, that person ends up going on to find their soulmate. It's the next person that they date. So they have this like curse that they're dealing with, and they always help other people find their soulmates. But then, you know, they've never found anyone. So they kind of, through like a Reddit thread, they end up messaging each other, and they make this plan that they're going to date each other to kind of cancel each other out and break this curse. And they end up, you know, just kind of doing this just for the summer. So this MMC, Justin, oh my God, I am in love with this man, this fake man. He was a great character. I love him so much. Emma got on my nerves a little bit. Again, she's got like a lot of emotional and, you know, situations that she's dealing with. She's got circumstances. But at some point I was kind of like, you know, I was sympathetic, and then I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. But again, I don't even know what to say besides you have to read this book. This was a great book. The one thing I will say, and as you can see, it's a Good Morning America book club pick. The only thing I will say in terms of advice, oh, and it was so funny. This was actually like really, really, really funny. And like Emma has a best friend, Maddie. She's hysterical. Like everything is so funny in this book. But what I will say in terms of advice, apparently Abby Jimenez has other books that are like kind of part of this world. So they're standalone. Like you don't have to read all of them. They're not technically part of a series, but there are like recurring characters or whatever. And I didn't know that till after I bought the book. And at that point I was like, I really just wanted to read this book. I'm not sure if I even want to read those other books. So I'm like, so what? It could be read alone. I'm going to read it alone. Having read this book and loving it so much, and I can't wait to get to those other books at some point, I really wish I would have done it in order because I just like doing that. Even if it can be separate and blah, 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 I like reading things in the order they were written if there are callbacks or anything like that, because I feel like that's where you see the fun little hidden surprises and what she intended in that sense. And from what I read, one of the characters that was called back, again, I didn't have the preconceived notion about them that other people that read that book would have had. I also didn't, and actually against that point, I feel like, and again, I don't want to spoil anything, but apparently one of the main situations that was going on, I think if I would have read one of the other books, I probably would have known more about that. And I'm glad that I didn't, because something happened at the end that I knew nothing about. And I'm kind of glad I didn't. So I don't know if that was touched on in the other books, or you realize there's a connection early on. Having read the other book, I'm almost kind of glad I didn't. So it's weird, but just as a rule in general, I usually do like to read things in the order that they're written, if there are callbacks and stuff like that. So that being said, if you were interested in this, I would definitely read the other books. And I don't want to say series because it's not a series. It's just kind of like interconnected. I don't know. I want to say there are 4, but I'm not sure. Interconnected books where certain things might recur. So that being said, though, other than that, this was like a 10-star book for me. I would totally recommend it, and I cannot wait to read more Abby Jimenez books. So August was one of the best reading months I've had this year. I loved all of the books I read this month. I cannot wait to move into September. I always say like the going back to school, back to work, kind of puts you in a little bit of a funk, but I'm really focusing on, I love fall, and especially with all the reading I'm doing this year, I'm really setting myself up for some good thrillers and some horror books going into my favorite time of year with Halloween and autumn and all that kind of stuff. So September is probably going to be a lot of thrillers and horror, and October as well. I also have a romance or two set in the fall that I might pull out, so I am excited for that. So hopefully next month I'll be also telling you it was a great month, and I'll have some good recommendations for you going into October. So that's it for August, and I'll see you next month. Bye.